Lake Mead was filled with deep, midnight blue water in 2000, flooding the banks of the rivers that fed it. However, it has shrunk dramatically in the last 20 years. Its basins are also lighter, almost turquoise in spots, indicating progressively shallow seas linked by exceedingly narrow gorges. So, in today's video, we'll see how much the water levels at Lake Mead have dropped and how this may affect people of the states. But first, please subscribe to our channel. Southwestern Nevada, Lake Mead. A rattlesnake hides among some rocks on the southern edge of Lake Mead, not far from the sun-baked remains of a houseboat that has been left to rot. There are several relics from the past littered around the wreck. Broken white plates rimmed with pretty floral designs, mismatched coffee mugs and saucers, and a blender full of grime. Its wooden framework is sprawled out across the rocky ground, a tangle of rope and wires connecting the splintered beams and rusty engine components that make up its guts. On top of the ruin is a little white toilet. Its lid, still linked to its seat, can be found near the shore. Lake Mead's water level has plummeted over 170 feet since 2000, as a result of a decades-long megadrought across the region, causing its coastline to recede drastically and exposing large areas of dry lake bed. They say the setback has reduced the quality of life at the lake to a fraction of what it once was for some residents and regular tourists. A new kind of tourist is also being drawn to the area as a result of the crisis. People interested in seeing the beachfront as it has been exposed. Lake Mead, which was designated the first national recreation area in 1964, is a popular tourist destination thanks to its glistening water, thrilling water sports, and stunning backdrop of snow-capped mountains. Roads that were originally constructed to touch the water's edge at Boulder Beach, in the lake's southwest corner, now end abruptly a few hundred yards inland. Wheels of cars carrying picnic supplies must grind over the fragile white shells that dot the dry lake bed on the rough off-road drive to the coast. Early this year, a body from the 1970s or 1980s was discovered in an eroding barrel on the freshly exposed coast near Boulder Beach. Several other sets of bones, including that of a person who drowned in 2002, have been discovered in the drying mud in the months since. This large lake's water level is dropping, and with it, bodies are starting to wash ashore. The exposure of artefacts like a landing craft from World War II, thanks to the drying lake bed, has brought national attention to the reservoir's water shortage and drawn a mishmash of amateur treasure hunters, YouTube explorers, and intrigued visitors hoping to spot the relics that now litter the lake bed. A sunken Higgins boat from World War II is becoming an increasingly well-known relic from the receding waters near the popular marinas of Hemingway Harbour. Its ribbed structure sticks up from the water like the bones of a prehistoric fish that washed up on shore. The long vessel's engine was taken out and it was largely dismantled. The rest of the boat's U-shaped form, which the park claims is still wrapped in its armour, is hidden by murky waters and layers of silt. Its body is covered in thick bands of rust and is decorated with tiny shells and marine vegetation. These boats are amphibious landing vessels, which were originally developed to transport American soldiers from ships to beaches. The park administration doesn't know when or how the boats ended up in the shallow area, but it's become a destination for curious explorers. There are many more boats that were submerged before they were able to find dry land amid the tufts of fragile vegetation or on the sand shelves created by the receding beaches. Most have thick deposits of grime and marine vegetation adhering to the surfaces of their display screens. Despite spending years below, the glossy paint on a select few of them still shines brightly in the sunlight. There isn't a single spot at the reservoir where you can't see the massive water loss. Massive outcroppings of granite that protrude from the seabed and form a dramatic wall in some areas. The debris from previous lake levels forms a thick white stripe along the lake's margins. Even from far vantage points, the jagged bathtub ring that runs through the mountains is visible. The massive Hoover Dam serves to hold back water in the reservoir, and its top is flush with the ivory ring. The massive turbines that power the dam now rise high above the water surface. Together, they can generate enough hydropower to supply about 1.3 million homes each year. Without a steady source, they can only function at a little over half speed. According to the Bureau of Reclamation, if the water levels drop any lower, by around 100 feet, they will no longer be able to generate electricity. Despite the reservoir's significantly reduced water level, it continues to serve as an extraordinary playground for the millions of annual visitors. But it's getting harder and harder to launch a boat these days. In an effort to keep up with the receding water level, the National Park Service has spent approximately $50 million since 2000 moving and extending boat launching ramps and other infrastructure. Despite these major and expensive changes, the park has been forced to shut down all but one ramp. At the only remaining Hemingway Harbour launch ramp, the water is still too shallow for larger boats to access. Road congestion by vehicles towing watercraft can cause lengthy wait times on popular days. At several points along the long, paved approach to the ramp, there are signs highlighting the potential dangers of boating while water levels are low. From 1987 until 2000, when Alan O'Neill was the park superintendent, the park maintained as many as 9 ramps for users to draw boats into and out of the lake. O'Neill now describes the park's provision of only one ramp as tragic. He says, "It hurts my soul to walk out there. The lake's current elevation surprised us tremendously." Lake Mead National Recreation Area was under Alan O'Neill's watch when the reservoir was at its highest point. While O'Neill is quick to stress out that there is still much to do on land in the 1.5 million acre park, thanks to its massive mountains, valleys and canyons, he feels that the closing of infrastructure like launch ramps and marinas has substantially hampered the visitor experience at the lake. "I feel really horrible looking out and seeing that," O'Neill adds, recalling the park's flurry of activity as people enjoyed the lake and its surrounding shores. According to Bruce Nelson, the Director of Operations at the Lake Mead Marina in Hemingway Harbour, the news of the terrible drought's effects on the lake may also be discouraging visitors. As he puts it, everyone is convinced that Lake Mead is this gigantic mud puddle, and that's not the reality. He goes on to point out that even at low capacity, Lake Mead is still one of the largest reservoirs in the United States. The lake is still fantastic for recreational boating and other water-based fun. The National Park Service is organising a number of public workshops this month to discuss a plan to accommodate boating when the reservoir levels decrease, in light of the negative effects that the current water and ramp conditions are having on the visitor experience. Federal forecasts suggest that during the next 2 years, the reservoir's levels will continue to drop, getting closer to dead pool levels, when the dam is unable to send water downstream. In light of these ominous predictions, the federal government has already ordered forced water reductions in the state of Nevada, Arizona and New Mexico. As of right now, it looks like California will be next. More reductions are still required, however, to protect Lake Mead and the Colorado River Basin. However, figuring out who among the states, tribes, towns and farmers will be responsible for the most stringent regulations has been a source of protracted tension. But if states don't promise significant water reductions, the federal government may lose patience and take action. In order to keep the reservoir from reaching dead pool levels, the US Department of the Interior is developing plans to take its own actions, which may include reducing downstream water releases. As the water level in the reservoir continues to drop, archaeological artifacts from its long history are gradually becoming exposed. However, decades worth of relics are still lost in depths of hundreds of feet. A fundamental miscalculation of the plane's height sent the B-29 Superfortress crashing into the surface and sinking to the lakebed in the northern Overton arm of the reservoir 74 years ago. This location, now more than 200 feet below the surface, used to be a popular dive site. However, the park has banned diving there this year since the water level has dropped by about 100 feet, and officials are still trying to figure out how to protect the historic artifact in the shallower waters. Colonies of invasive mussels have quilted the aluminium body of the plane after decades of submersion in the lake. Despite the damage to the cockpit, a parachute that was captured during the crew's successful evacuation still lays outstretched between the seats. Both the B-29 and the fate of the surrounding critical waters are in the dark at this time. Curiosities from Lake Mead's depths are slowly but surely making their way to the surface, if slowly at first, then more quickly as the years go by. What are your thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. We'll see you in the next video.